Greetings, friends. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and primary host of this program, the MagnifEssence in Motion. Today, we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting. The topic title is Beyond the Normal Box. Now, in this episode, we're diving deep into this societal constructs that attempt to define the human experience. And as you can see, joining me today for this illuminating conversation is my dear friend and colleague, Sara Jane. She is a best-selling author, a Reiki master, and the innovative creator of Vocal Reiki. She brings a wealth of wisdom to the table, and with her unique background, ranging from her deep work in energy healing and light language to her fascinating experiences working with wolves, Sara is going to help us today dismantle the rigid fences of normality to reveal the vibrant, authentic truth of who we really are. So welcome, Sara. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to say, you stepped in on short notice when one of my other guests chose to cancel on me at last minute. So I'm really grateful that you were willing to do that. So thank you, and bless you for being here.
Oh, well, thank you. Hello, David, and thank you for inviting me, because this is a topic that I've thought about so much over years, because I've worked with adults with learning difficulties. I spent a little time with children with learning difficulties as well,
Right.
and behavioral problems for them. And I think it's something that's so important. What is normal, and whose definition is it anyway? And so, yeah, it's a, and thank you for agreeing to the topic, because it is something that I'm feeling more and more strongly about.
And Lord knows you never feel strongly about very much. Yeah, I think so. I've thought about this topic a lot too. I've always wondered what it means to be normal. I mean, if you look at just scientific information, for example, they always say things like the brain does this, the brain, as if everybody's brain does this. And I always wondered, how do they know the brain does this? Because they can't really, well, I guess nowadays they're getting better at it, but it used to be that all the brains they ever examined were brains from dead people. So how did they ever figure out half what they said about what the brain does or doesn't do? Well, nowadays, of course, they've got these MRIs and all these other CAT scan things and stuff, so they can look at brains within normal, or people, I shouldn't say normal, within people while they're still alive. But how many people go and get their brains checked? Most people who go and get their brains checked are getting it checked because they've got some kind of medical issue going on. And is having a medical issue normal? Is that the average? Is that what we're talking about here? So I've always thought about this. I said, this is weird. They can't tell me what the brain does because they just don't know. They said in every brain we've looked at, this is the kind of behavior we see. And how many brains have they actually looked at? You see what I'm saying? So what they're really talking about, I think, when they refer to normal is average of everything we've seen so far. That's really that's the best they can do with that word normal, I think. What do you think?
Well, I just feel that normal is about sticking as many people as possible in a box.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, yeah.
And if you don't fit into that box, are we really abnormal? No. We're just being true to who we are, maybe because we have no choice in that. But if you are born with a missing limb, you can't fit in the normal box. And there's the motivational speaker, Nick something, and then it's a foreign surname. If I could remember it, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it. He was born without arms and legs, yet he is brilliant, and he has not let what people would call taking him outside of the box stop him. In fact, it's probably been the biggest motivation to do something. How many athletes, Olympian, para-Olympian athletes whether they've been born with that disability or whether it's happened because of an accident or something, how many of them haven't been motivated by, I am not going to let this stop me from living my life? There are those, however, it's, oh, this is stopping me from living my life. We all have choices within those things. So there are physical differences. There are mental differences in respect of how we understand things. There are differences for those who can't speak, who can't hear, who can't see. Those with who are diabetic. How many more things, how many things are there? All the learning difficulties, disabilities, neurodiversity, whatever you want to call it. There are so many people that are their own normal. They can't be put inside a box because they are their own unique self.
Right.
And
yeah, I agree. And that person that you're referring to, I don't know his name off the top of my head either, but I have seen him speak, and I've watched him actually come up on stage. It's pretty amazing how he does it. And he climbs up on the podium and somehow he does this with no arms and no legs. I mean, that's inspiring enough right there.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking.
Yeah.
And he's just a brilliant speaker. And I guess he's done some amazing things. He's climbed mountains. He's done all kinds of crazy things that normal people have trouble doing, and yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that the idea of normal in that sense really doesn't make sense at all. I think though that the idea of normal probably should go out the window. But let's say, for example, a thought just came to me. What happens if you want to be in the military, or you want to be a fireman, or you want to do this or that or the other thing? You certainly have to be able to meet certain standards in order to be able to do those things. Now, I don't care whether you have arms and legs or not, or you have some other kind of issue going on. If you can meet all the standards, then you should be allowed to do that job. That is how I feel about it. Now, so you might have some abnormal people participating in something, but they're doing it because they're able to meet all the standards. Now, obviously, in some cases, having no arms and legs could be a serious impediment.
Yes.
For example, I don't think a person with no arms and legs would be very successful as a fireman, to be honest. Not that there's anything wrong with them trying. If they want to try, go ahead, do it. I kudos to you, but you still got to meet the standards. So there's that difference between, we're not trying to fit you into a box. We're just telling you got to be able to meet this standard in order to be able to participate with us. That's what you got to be able to do. So there's a difference between meeting standards and being declared normal or abnormal, in my mind. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely get what you're saying. I really, really do. And you've obviously taken the physical thing.
That's just one aspect, just as an example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But from another aspect of neurodiversity, there are people with certain conditions that they may not be able to understand and be able to cope with certain things, but they have abilities beyond those of us considered normal.
Well, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but they have been excluded because of their neurodiversity. But it's starting to get to the point where employers, etc., are beginning to understand that it's about people's strengths, not about their weaknesses.
Right. I agree with that. And at the same time, you may have some amazing strengths that are of absolutely no use to me in the work that I do.
Yeah.
And that's not a slight against you at all. It's just, I'm sorry, it's not a fit. I like you. I think you're great. I think you've got some great potential. It's just not going to work here. And I think employers have to be able to say that without fear of being judged as discriminatory because they're not giving someone a fair chance. This is one of the things that I have found really troubling about this whole neurodiversity and other kinds of diversity issues. I'm all in favor of natural diversity. We should have as many different kinds of people as possible in this world, but they all got to be able to fit into the same society, right? They all got to be able to contribute in whatever positive way they can. And they've got to be able to do this without causing too much disruption to everybody else. And that applies to the normal people too, okay? I mean, we all have to honor each other's rights and so forth. I think that's where we're coming from. That's where I'm coming from on this topic. So I don't even like the word normal. I try very hard to eliminate it from my dialogue. Although, because it's habitual, sometimes I do say normal, and I sometimes have to correct myself. But that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, and absolutely. And if you're a particular way, if your normal is a particular way, then there are going to be those things that won't resonate, won't work with you, and you're unlikely to go for those positions where you're not a fit.
That's right.
So if yes, and it's just like, you talked about firefighters, but even within the neurodiversity, you may not be a fit for an aspect, but there may be another aspect, even if it's within the doing the admin, etc. It doesn't stop you from working within that genre. It just means you can't do specific jobs within that, and that goes for everything.
I agree.
It really does.
Mm-hmm. Listen, you were talking about when there's a fit or no fit. I think by all typical metrics, I'm a pretty normal guy. By all the typical metrics, okay? And yet I have been turned down for different jobs for all kinds of different reasons because I wasn't the right fit or the company wasn't the right fit for me. That's happened many times. So even within the so-called normal range, that kind of thing happens. Sometimes the misfit, if you like, is a little more obvious. And so you may not even get through the door to even have the interview. That's quite possible. If I have a degree in, home economics and I'm applying to be a quantum physicist, they're probably going to say no right at the outset,
But would you be applying?
Because I'm interested in quantum physics, not because I took this thing way back when, but now I'm more interested in quantum physics. Can I join you guys? Well, if you can solve this problem, you're in. Maybe you might get that opportunity. But you see, that's what I'm getting at. We're all of us are normal, abnormal in one way or another. Every single one of us. There's many of us have normal aspects and many of us have abnormal aspects. And I personally cherish all of them.
I think because I live within a family that is pretty rife with neurodiversity in some form or another. And that's only come out in the last few years.
Really? You haven't noticed it before this?
Well, it wasn't neurodiversity is a fairly new term. Mm-hmm. It became learning difficulties or learning disabilities prior to that. And it was mentally handicapped before that. Now, that is a term that put an awful lot of people's backs up, mentally handicapped. Right. But that's when I first became aware of it in my teens. My parents had a small hotel, and we had some nuns bought a group of more mature ladies classed as mentally handicapped to come and have holiday with us or within the hotel. And this is when, Mum's still living in Torquay. And I remember looking at them, and I don't get me wrong, I hate this term us and them. I really do. There is no us and them.
Right.
But I was in my teens. I didn't get it the way I get it today. And I remember looking and thinking, here's me in my teens, working in my parents' hotel, still going to school, etc., etc. Sort of, I don't get pocket money anymore unless I do some work, sort of the waitressing or chambermaiding or whatever. And here they are, they're on a holiday, they're taken care of, the food, everything's provided for them. Who's got the disability? And that was my thought as a teen.
Mm-hmm.
And my reaction was, we have. Those of us that are classed as normal.
Right.
Because I'm not saying they didn't have problems within their lives. And I might have thought that at the time, and I'm not saying that now. You commented about sort of people who sort of add to the world and rather than disrupt it. But I look at that and think, because I do believe we make the choices of our life experiences. And do people who are so neurodiverse, as they like to now call it, that they are not of the ability to work. They've got neurodiversity, they've got physical issues. They are not able to work. They have to be cared for. And Stephen Hawking, the way he ended up, gratefully, he was still able to communicate through technology. But if that technology hadn't have existed, they wouldn't have known his brain was still so active. But he, in a wheelchair, he couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And had to be looked after. There are those people who are here to be carers. It's all part and parcel of this amazing, diverse world we live in.
Right.
And so there are those here who absolutely, they're here to care. And
I think in a way, we're all here to care.
Oh, yes, but I'm referring to the physical caring of somebody.
Right.
Yes, we are, sort of, my mother's struggling with walking, so it's making sure she's not falling over. There's all sorts of things that go with that. So yes, we all are, but to that day to day, that every day that is required for people, that's really what I'm saying, is that there is a role for everybody,
right.
Whether that role is being the carer or being the person who requires to be cared for.
Yeah, right.
So that there is a role for everyone. And
right. And who's to judge what that role is?
Exactly.
I'm just going to say, Dawn, welcome aboard. I just noticed a moment ago that you arrived. I want to say thank you for being here. Feel free to post any comments or questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond to those when we see them. I wanted to say, this idea of who's to judge the role or purpose of any being, it's just so reminding to me of Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, where he talked about that very thing. Each of us has a purpose. And ultimately, I think our purpose is to be some kind of unique expression of all that is. That's how I interpret it. And so who's to say whether your expression of all that is better or worse, or why should I have any judgment at all about it? Really, you're here to do you, and I'm here to do me. And together, your you and my me contribute to that overall experience of all that is. And that's how I see it now. So I may not like the way I see someone show up. That's my issue now. That's about my preferences. That's about my biases. That's about the filters that I have in my life. And if I see you behaving in a non-normal way, I may have some triggers go off. I may have some reactions. Well, that's something for me to look at, right? But hopefully I look at it in a healthy way without projecting onto you and making you feel bad for showing up the way you do. That is what I think we're all here to be able to learn, how to be ourselves while still being with each other.
Absolutely. There's a song, and I think is it called a boat called Dignity, and it's
Oh no.
a song, and it's basically, I think the guy was a street cleaner, but he saved his money, and the words are saved his money for retirement to buy a boat which he called Dignity. Just because of the job that he didn't mean he hadn't got any dignity.
Of course. Yep.
And so I can't remember who sang it, and I can't remember sort of what it was called, but I know there's something about a boat called Dignity.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Everyone, just by virtue of being born, has dignity. Everyone deserves to have a life. And, it may or may not be normal in the traditional sense, in whatever that traditional sense is. And that doesn't matter. There are so many people out there now that I'm seeing that are doing unique things to express who they are. And sometimes my heart just swells with such, inspiration. It's some of this is so amazing. People like think of Cirque du Soleil performers, for example. Where do they get their ideas for doing the things that they do on that stage? It's mind-blowing. Or even these crazy men and women, I guess, who do these extreme sports, like skiing down impossible slopes, or riding bicycles down tiny, thin tracks that, whoa, baby, I don't know how you do it.
Not for me.
Yeah. But then there's also the people who sit quietly in a room and maybe I remember hearing a story about a man, I think he was crippled actually. And crippled in the sense that he his legs were very, very badly deformed. He couldn't walk at all, but his hands were in good shape. And he used to make these extremely tiny sculptures. I don't, like he would find wood or something, and somehow he would carve it in tiny, tiny pieces, so small you couldn't really see it except through a magnifying glass. And I'm thinking, what possesses people to do stuff like this? And the only answer I can come up with is it's an expression of who they are. They're trying to be a full expression of who they really are. And I think that's absolutely magnificent, personally.
There are people who write on rice.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that. What? Why are you doing that? That's definitely not normal.
But it's their normal.
No, what I'm saying is, and it's beautiful that it's not normal.
Yeah.
So.
And so I do look at it. I look at the things that I've done, and I know that there are a load of my friends that it's just like, really, Sarah? But they don't judge me on it. They've given up judging me on it. It's no point. But earlier today, and if any of my family watch this, my sincere apologies, but bumped into, I suppose he's my nephew-in-law, his dad. And I sort of mentioned about one of my nephews and said, oh, he looks so like his dad. And he's just turned 9. And he was saying, yes, he does, because, and obviously he would be proud of that, to think he's got a grandson that looks like his son. And he was saying, oh, and he they just had their sports day, and he said, oh, he won a race or something, and praising him. And he said, and then thinking, oh, we've got to be careful we don't praise him too much because of the other grandson. And Mum and I both said to him, you've got to praise him, because the other grandson, you've got to find those things that he is good at and praise him for those.
Exactly.
You can't hold back on praise for one to keep the other one happy, but it is important to find the things for the other that you can praise them for. And what is really important for I see, and hopefully it is starting to happen more and more, we concentrate on people's strengths, not on the things they can't do. You know, at school, I was pretty useless at English because I could not understand grammar. I still can't get it. It is still a foreign language to me, which probably means I do have aspects of dyslexia. And I wish to learn foreign languages, but they taught it using grammar. Fat lot of use to me. So I could never learn a foreign language because of the way it was taught. If you cannot teach the way a person can learn, don't expect them to be able to learn it.
Right.
It doesn't mean they can't. It means they can't the way you're teaching it. And my youngest sister, with the diagnosis she's had, 7 years ago now, of being dyslexic, ADHD, autism spectrum, complex PTSD.
That's a mouthful.
Oh, yes. On top of the fact that she's celiac, she's got osteoporosis, and I don't know what else.
Oh my God.
But, oh yeah, I mean, she's been given a lot to deal with, but there's a purpose behind that. And now she's got the diagnosis, she knows how to work with it.
Right.
But back at school in those days, we had a brilliant mathematician as a maths teacher. He was a lousy teacher to people like me who just didn't get it. Yet when I went to college, the calcs and accounts teacher was able to help me understand mental arithmetic. And I still quite happily doing my shopping, because I add up my shopping as I'm going round. I can do it. I couldn't have done it if I'd never done that course, that particular course, because I wouldn't have had somebody who could teach me the way I could learn. So we have strengths. We have the things that we struggle with. And it's an acceptance that I don't have to know everything in this world. I do not have to be a rocket science, an amazing surgeon, an top architect, etc., etc. I don't have to do all of it.
Right.
What I'm here to be is the best I can be of being me.
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting. You don't have to know everything, but you certainly can know whatever you need to know whenever you need to know it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean to say that you might ever do, brain surgery, no matter how much you know about it, because that really does require very special skills. And, I sure wouldn't want just an average person, a normal person, if you like, doing brain surgery on me. I'd rather have the highly specialized doctor who's done it 100 or 1,000 times. I have a little more faith in that person. Perhaps that's a bias of mine. I don't know, but that's just the other thing I wanted to talk about was this idea of praise. I totally agree with you. You got to find things. Well, you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. I'm just recommending that you find things about your children that you can be praising them for. I remember one of the things, I hearing this idea of a favorite child, back when I was a kid, and I was thinking, how could any of my children be my favorite? They can't. They're all very, very special in their own way. So I developed a little strategy that I thought was kind of cute. And I would say to my daughter, you are my absolute favorite number one daughter. And I would say to my son, you are my absolute favorite number one son. And to my second son, you are my absolute favorite number two son. And, this gave them a sense of how much I cared about them, how much I loved them, and let them know that I thought they were all special in their own way, right? Without identifying specific skills or anything like that. That was just, I don't know, that was just a very, very simple little trick I found to give my kids a sense of feeling special, right? And I mean, anybody can do that. I don't know why I thought of it, but it did. It just came to me, and it seemed to work. I still say it to them when I see them, and they all smile. We had a couple of other rituals that I used to do with them that were fun. I remember saying to my kids when they were young, "I love you very, very much, forever and ever, no matter what, always, always, always." And it started with "You are my absolute favorite," blah, and we would repeat it back and forth to each other. And it's become a ritual. And can you believe that, me, a 73-year-old man, saying this to my 41-year-old son, and he's still responding? It's beautiful. I love it. So I think it's possible to appreciate anybody, not just your children, but anybody, for some quality or skill, or maybe perhaps a handful, or maybe many such qualities and skills. But the thing is, the secret is to tell them, I'm really grateful to have you in my life. What I really appreciate about you in this moment is, and then say it. It's really easy, and if it comes from the heart, it lands beautifully.
I've got a very special gentleman friend. He's more like a big brother. But we genuinely say to each other, "Love you dearly, but I don't like you sometimes."
Sure.
because we're allowed to do that. We don't have to like somebody. But actually, can you really like somebody without loving them? In a way, it's not that word love in respect of romantic love. It's a love at a totally different level. And I struggle with the word love because of what happened to me as a child, and the fact that it was from what my mother has told me sort of more recently. When I was in hospital, they only got to see me once a week for an hour. She'd come in, she'd pick me up, she'd cuddle me to her, and she'd go, "I love you, I love you, I love you," over and over again. She said, "I would say it over and over and again to you." She'd then put me back in the cot and leave.
Right.
That's what love, sadly, means to me. So as much as I've used that word love, the word I'm most comfortable with is care. And I care so deeply. So it's my word for love, if you like.
Sure.
And do you know what? If anybody's listening to this and you're thinking, "Oh, I like that," use it. Because we don't share these things because it's mine, it's precious to me, and you can't have it. I'm sharing this because if you struggle with that word love because of something that has happened, find an alternative word for it. And I hadn't really thought about it being as an alternative word for love until I think I had a conversation with my younger sister. But I care. I care so deeply about everybody and an awful lot of things that I suppose, yes, and I do have a passion for things, my soapbox for things, and I try not to be too bad about it. But it's who we are. It's because we love, we care. We have a consideration, a thought for something. We stay out of a judgment. And I am one of these people that I will play devil's advocate. Somebody's talking about something and say, okay, but what if this is the situation with that person? Don't have to like the way they're being, but is there a reason behind it that can help make it more understandable? It still doesn't make it acceptable necessarily, but maybe then there's a conversation with that person that can support them if they're ready to do it. Because people who've been through potentially the type of thing I went through, which felt like abandonment and rejection to a year-old child, they're either going to come out something like a people pleaser like I did, or they could come out really angry. And I'm not saying that anger probably isn't to a certain degree still in me because of stuff. And actually, reading an aspect of your new book today, I was thinking, yeah, I can see where that comes in. It's just like, I get the feeling that's down there in the child.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either.
No, absolutely nothing wrong with that, because the child's been hurt.
Of course. And the thing to understand, I think, is it's perfectly okay to have anger, to experience anger, to express anger.
Yeah.
It's not okay to hurt somebody else, to inflict that anger in violent ways on other people. But it's perfectly okay to find your own safe way to express it, get it out of you, so it's not locked inside, seething away and treating your body with all kinds of nasty poisons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the way to deal with it. The other thing I like to make the distinction between the person and the behavior. When you mentioned I love you dearly, but I don't like you so much right now. That, to me, what you're really saying is, I love you dearly, but what you're doing right now is irritating me. I am triggered inside because of this. What I find is, if I take responsibility and own it, I'm noticing I'm feeling a lot of anger and judgment about you right now because of X, Y, and Z. I'd like to process it a little bit, so I'm going to go off over there and just, take a little break, and then I'll be back, and maybe I'll be able to talk to you about it. How's that? This is called taking responsibility. This is called honoring the other person and recognizing that the real issue isn't with the person, but with me. And yeah, sometimes other people do really stupid and maybe even bad things. But we're never going to solve the problem by bringing more violence to solve it.
No. And it's said in a way that is caring rather than a way that is angry.
Right.
It's never said in a disruptive way.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to play the saint here.
Oh, no.
I'm telling you that I've had plenty of experiences in my life where my anger came out like really fast and in a nasty way. And I had to kind of reel it back in and say, whoa, I'm really sorry that came out like that. Obviously, I've got an issue that I need to deal with. It's time for me to take a walk, and I'll be back later. We can talk about it. But for now, I just want to apologize for that and let you know that it's not about you. It takes work. It's not something that just happens overnight,
None of it happens overnight. I think that's what we all have to accept. There is no pill that turns us normal.
Exactly.
Thank God. Thank God there is no pill that turns us normal.
Well, there isn't any pill that turns us any which way, actually.
Exactly.
There are pills that help deal with certain things in different ways, but they don't necessarily solve the problem. They don't get down to the root cause most of the time.
Yeah. And I think, well, I'd say look at homeopathy if you want to look at something that gets to the root cause.
Right.
And so yes, we have limitations. Each and every one of us does. And our limitations are different. Because I know I've said this before, and I know you don't like my analogy. That's fine. You have your own. But I think of a mechanism of life as being like a mechanism. And each and every one of us are like a cog, a wheel in that mechanism. And when we aren't true to ourselves, we actually disrupt that mechanism.
Of course.
And so I genuinely believe we are born perfect for the life we are here to live.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that gets covered up and we have to actually get rid of all the layers of what isn't us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just part and parcel of the growing up, because we are guided by parents and teachers and maybe religious leaders and whatever, and whoever else. And then it's finding who we are beneath.
Right. Well, you know, all those layers you're talking about, those are like the grease and the grime and the dirt that get into the cog and prevent it from operating properly.
Yeah.
And by the way, why do you say I don't like that
Because
metaphor?
you didn't like it when I told it last time.
I think you're mistaken. I may have said something about a particular quality of that metaphor or something, but no, I think it's a perfectly fine metaphor for life.
And so I think it's important. We require the people who are the street cleaners, the
Yes.
people who are the porters in hospitals. We shouldn't, the waitresses and the waiters in restaurants, etc. The people who do the dishwashing in those places. If we lost all of those people, I dread to think the state this world would be in, because they are as essential as your brain surgeons, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
Because the world requires each and every level for the mechanism to work.
Right. Well, and you know, there's something else here. You know, as you're speaking about this, I was just thinking about the news that, you know, Elon Musk just became the world's first official documented trillionaire. It happened the other day, and you know, a lot of people have a reaction to that. They say $1 trillion, that's obscene. Nobody should have that much money. And I'm thinking, I have a completely different perspective on this. Now, I'm not a big, huge fan of Elon Musk. He's just a man like I am. He found a way to do something that's pretty damn special. You know, he's made SpaceX. He's got Tesla. He's done, PayPal. I think he was involved in when that started. The guy found a way to transform things and change so much of the way we live our lives. One person. Now that is pretty damn impressive. Now, what I take from that is, how can I learn from that and find my way to change the world? I don't need to be a trillionaire to do it. I could be a street cleaner and write a little song about a boat called Dignity. That might be my contribution. And it might be a very, very valuable contribution. No less valuable than something that Elon Musk did. So I don't want to judge anybody, including people like Elon Musk, for what they're doing in this world. Because I don't know Elon. I've never met the guy. The only thing I see is the stuff that's printed in the media, right? And of course, that's always going to be slanted one way or another, and it's very hard to know the truth.
Yeah.
So my invitation to people is relax, take a deep breath, and instead of judging these other people, look at what you're judging about yourself. Because that's what's really happening here. You're projecting some aspect of yourself out onto this whole group of people out there. And you're saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is no good, this is no good. And really what you're telling yourself is, this part of me is no good. False. That is not true at all. Every part of you is good. Every part of you is amazing, beautiful, and perfect. So embrace it. Bring it forth. Share it in the best way you know how. And don't apologize for it.
I could be wrong, but I'm sure I read or saw something. Not that I read masses about Elon Musk. I don't. And I didn't know that because I don't listen to the news if I can help it in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
But I believe he is neurodiverse.
Oh, I think that seems to be the case.
Yes. And thus giving him that mental ability to be able to do that. If he was wired the same as the so-called norm, he wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yep. Well, he might have been able to, but it would certainly be a different result.
Yeah. Yep. And so that's what I was sort of saying right back at the beginning, is within the neurodiversity, there are people who have amazing strength. There are those who may not be able to do the normal things around a home or whatever. They just struggle with all of that. Yet they have a photographic memory.
Mm-hmm.
Those that have been able to sit at a piano, have heard a piece of music once and be able to play it, having never been taught how to play a piano.
Right.
There are those people out there who are wired differently and have amazing abilities.
Right.
That's been the problem with how people like that have been treated in the past, that they haven't even been able to find what that ability is, or people have told them, don't be stupid, you can't do that, whatever. And that word stupid has been used far too often.
Right.
You're a dimwit, you're stupid, you're whatever other words people want to use. It isn't that they are, it is that they're wired differently.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, there are things that I see people do that the only word that can describe it for me is stupid. I'm sorry. It's a good word in certain circumstances. I shake my head and I think, what are you thinking?
Oh, come on.
But it's not meant to be a judgment of the person, but of the behavior, right?
But sometimes we do something and think, what? Really? Did I really just say that? Or did I really just say that? Or whatever. It's just,
of course. Yeah.
And we all have that within our lives.
Yeah.
And it's that ability to be able to laugh at ourselves.
Yep.
It is the one thing that I was a dreadfully bad loser at games and things like that. That was my insecurities. And I've learned to, it's a matter of, if you laugh at yourself, others have to laugh with you rather than at you.
Yeah. Well, they don't have to, but hopefully they will.
But if you're laughing, it's not an at you, because it's going to be with you, and that made sense. And so if I do anything a little bit daft, it's just like I laugh at myself.
It's funny. I was having a video phone call with my son a few days ago, and he said something, and then I said something that was absolutely stupid. And we both burst out laughing. And I mean, it was belly laughing. Yeah. I said, I don't believe I just said that. And we're laughing on both sides of the screen. I mean, I love it when we can have that kind of laughter. I really do. It feels so good just to let that energy flow through me when I'm laughing. And it's okay to do stupid things,
Absolutely. And maybe sometimes we find ourselves doing those silly things because we're meant to create that laughter. It's meant to be about laughter. It's meant to be about what they say is laughter is a smile that burst. And I love that, because
a smile that burst.
Yes.
Like a balloon.
Yeah.
A balloon full of joy.
You're smiling and then suddenly it's just and laughter is something that is missing from our lives.
Right.
We don't smile and laugh enough. That's what I love about these conversations, because they usually make me smile a lot.
Well, we've been doing this together, you and I, for a long time. I mean, not on this program, but on Soul Empowerment. We've been doing that for a long time. I've been on your program on Gift of Healing TV. I've been on your today's conversation. We've had many, many opportunities to share space, and we always manage to find something to laugh about. Yeah. I think it's great. I love it.
To me, that's what it's meant to be about. Because as serious as this conversation is, I think people are more likely, if we find, okay, there's a light side of it, but there's obviously that serious side of it.
Yeah.
But it's an acceptance that we haven't got to go out there and be totally serious about things. We can, okay, can we lighten the load of this,
Right.
rather than sort of making it worse because we've got too serious about it.
What I've always found interesting, and this is just a complete random thought now, the opposite of gravity is levity.
Mm-hmm.
And what is levity but lightness and humor and yeah. So yeah, absolutely. And humor and laughter, they say, are the best medicine. I totally agree with that statement. The only challenge for me personally in my current medical state is that if I laugh too much, then I start coughing. And you saw me catch one of those a moment ago. So yeah. So normal. Are we normal, Sarah? Are you and I normal?
You see, my answer to that is yes, we are our own normal.
Okay.
Because I am not anybody else's normal. I'm mine. And having worked with the adults with learning difficulties, because that's very much what it was called at the time, and different conditions, and I couldn't name them, which said they could do this and they couldn't do that and they weren't capable of it. There was one, I'd say young lady, she was in her 30s at the time I was working with. And I got her to do things that her condition said she couldn't do.
Right.
But then I only had her for a very few hours and therefore had the patience to support her to do that. But she would have required that patience every single time to do that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a matter of learnt, then she could do it herself, because it didn't work like that. It's a very simple incident of that was we went to Monkey World, which isn't too far from here, and they'd got sort of platforms that you could look over the enclosures, because they were big size enclosures, but there were steps going up. They were wide steps, but they did have banisters either side, and it was just like, I can't do that. I said, okay, you climb your stairs at home. Yes. Okay, so I'd like you to hold the banister, look down at your feet, and just climb those stairs the way you climb those stairs at home. We got her to the top and we got her down again.
Right.
But although she can do the stairs at home, technically she shouldn't have been able to do that. There are ways round. You won't always get people to be able to do things, and you have to accept that. But if there's a motivation, like being able to see the monkeys in that enclosure, there was a motivation for her as well. I took her to meet the wolves. She actually physically got to meet the wolves.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
Very special. And so we all have abilities. We all have struggles. They are our normal. And it's not allowing other people's judgment to hold us back, and not being judgmental of ourselves.
Yeah, well, I think isn't judgment like the biggest, I would say, adhesive for the container of the box?
Yes. Yeah, like the strongest glue that can hold you up.
Right.
Suit, take that in the air, yeah.
Isn't judgment the big thing that keeps us from even taking a risk to step outside that normal box?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not so much, I think the truth is we're not really afraid of the judgments of other people. I think we're afraid of the judgments of ourselves more than the judgments of other people. I think we constrain ourselves more than other people do. You know, we've had this conversation before, and I think I've shared that my belief is that most of the time other people are too busy living their own lives to be worried about judging me. You know, I remember I was part of, you know, the Toastmasters organization, and I got through the entire program. I became a distinguished Toastmaster, and one of the things that I started teaching people as a result of this, I would hear people say, "Oh, I'm terrified of public speaking. That's why I'm participating on here." And I would say to them, I said, "So tell me a little bit about yourself," and they'll start talking, no problem. Yeah, you know, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a blah, blah, blah. I said, so you're not afraid of public speaking at all because you just did that in public and you didn't even care that other people might be judging you right now. So what are you really afraid of? When you get up on stage, what's the difference between being up there in you know, with the spotlight on you and being right here in front of me where you're, you know, comfortably sharing about yourself? What's the difference? Well, it's like I'm naked up there, you know, everybody can see me. I said, uh-huh. And so when you're sitting in the audience and someone else is up on the stage, what are you thinking of? Are you thinking, oh my God, look at how naked they are. Look at how bad they are. What are you thinking about? Well, I'm usually just listening to what they're saying. Interesting. That seems to be the case for most people. So you're not really afraid of the public speaking part. You're afraid of the judgment part. And the judgment you're most afraid of is the one you put on yourself. When I got people to see that, you know, it was amazing. It's just kind of, you're right. I can do this. And so they would much more comfortably step out on stage, maybe still be a little bit nervous. That's okay. Nervous just means you care.
Yeah.
Right? It means you care about the message you want to convey. That's all it means. So don't be upset about being nervous. Just go up there, be nervous, be yourself, have fun. So that was my little story and how I kind of learned to help people be less self-judgmental in the realm of public speaking.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was that light bulb. Why am I worrying about what other people think about me when they're not?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And seriously, when I had that thought, I literally felt the weight lift off my shoulders.
Yeah.
So you started Life Mastery TV early 2014 because I started Gift of Healing TV September 2014. So there was
Right.
a few months between.
Right.
That's how long. And we met each other. I don't know whether we met in 2012, but we definitely met in 13 when we did that course. We were on that same course.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's interesting, really, to me. Self-judgment is probably the biggest poison we have.
Yeah.
And everybody has it. And it's just a question of recognizing it, honoring it, looking at where it comes from, and giving it permission to be present so that you can release it.
Yeah.
It's really, well, we can talk a lot more about self-judgment, but that we're getting close to the top of the hour here. And I want to give you a chance to close out this show, or at least do your part to close out before I close out with some beautiful light language.
Okay. So, folks, this is not about what you hear. It is about what you feel. Koi tiana ka che matake I, tantore ke chi I takara naite, sontore maka, inche acto esti, kintaramacho I kanakate eni akashte, tentarake, ter oich teneke meiti, nantarake che maikai, sont tonoki chiamakate eteai, hir a no te ke chiamata, koi tanamakate, shamatakatea. Namaste.
I always love it when you do that, Sarah. I feel so good every time. Do you have any final words you'd like to say about the normal box before I close us out?
chuck it away. It doesn't apply to any of us in the way that society would like it to apply. We're all born unique and special. Be, and what's it they say? Be yourself, everybody else is taken. And don't die a copy. Or was it something? Was it? There's another one.
It doesn't matter. I get the message, and
Yeah,
it's a beautiful message.
Yeah. So thank you, David. Thank you all. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
All right. Okay. And everyone, I want to thank you for being here and remind you that you can watch episodes of this and every other episode on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. It's been just a joy being here with you and with Sara, of course, who had to leave because she's got another program to go to. And I want to leave you with my life mastery mantra, something that you can use on a daily basis. It's just 3 simple sentences that you can use as part of your meditation or whatever. And it goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So thank you for being here. I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. Don't let yourself get stuck in that normal box. Have a great life, and I'll see you next time on MagnifEssence in Motion. Bye-bye for now.